Hello and welcome to another session of Canvas+Paint offered by Garden City Arts. My name is Katie Guthrie and I'm going to be walking you through this really beautiful spring painting. Now, if you purchased a kit from Garden City Arts, then you need to lay out your colors 1 through 8 on your palette. If you did not, that's okay. Make sure you paint your canvas blue, a light blue, before you get started, and you can just mix your colors as you go. You also will need paint brushes, and these are things not included in your art kit. You'll need to purchase those by yourself. You can have a wash brush anywhere from the size 1 inch to 5/8. Anything is just fine. This is a small painting, so you'll get away with a smaller brush. A shader brush, I like to use like a 6 or an 8, and a round brush, again, or a 6 or an 8. I think this is a 4, which is just fine. In your kit, you'll also have some chalk, some paper towels, and water. And if you have all those things, then you are ready to get going. Let's get started. Step number 1, we're going to break out color number 1. It is white. What we are doing is we are brightening the horizon line. After we get the horizon line brightened, we will worry about the water. So I'm going to use my biggest brush. You don't have to have this big of a brush, remember. I'm going to get it damp, and then I'm going to pat it on my paper towel until it is nice and cool and damp to the touch, but not dripping wet. This color, well, this paint that we're about to use, we're going to use it really thick right along the horizon line, and then we're going to water it down so that it's transparent as we go up and away. So first thing I'm going to do is draw a horizon line. I want it to be above the halfway point, okay? It needs to be above the halfway point, and then I'm going to work on softening it, and I'll talk to you about how to do that. So first things first, put in the horizon line. You can put in a pretty solid white chunk of paint to get you started. Next, we're going to take water. On our palette, we're going to mix the water and a little bit of paint to make this very runny glaze. That glaze is going to be then used to start right at that line and work your way up until your brush runs out of paint, okay? Now this is a canvas I've painted on before, so it has a lot of texture from past paintings. Maybe not the best canvas to paint on for this painting, but that's all right. We'll make it work. Your canvas should be nice and smooth, so you won't be having as many issues with the paint. Also keep in mind, this doesn't have to be perfect. This is the first layer of many. So what I'm doing is I'm just working to make sure I don't have any lines. I have a nice smooth gradient. The way I do that is if I need to, I can grab some extra paint to fill in at the bottom. And then make sure you have maybe more of a paint water mixture. And then you turn your brush to its largest point when you're going side to side. Big brush strokes, don't do short choppy ones. You have to go all the way from one end to the canvas to the other and move your way up. You should have something that looks something like mine. If it doesn't, that's okay. Remember, we'll put some stuff on top of it, no one will know. Okay, and we're gonna move on to the next step. Make sure you clean out your brush, you swirl, tap, and dry it on your paper towel, and you'll be ready to go. For this next step, we're going to focus on the water. So we can break out color number 2, which is bright aqua green. It's kind of a bluish green, and a cerulean blue, okay? Both of these are just straight from the tube, just like the white was. And we're going to kind of leave right by the horizon line a little bit alone, and instead we're going to come down right underneath and start putting in the bright aqua green. Now, if you purchase the kit, I actually use bright aqua green and white to paint your canvas, so it should blend seamlessly. So if you didn't purchase the kit, make sure that whatever color you painted, that's the color you use in place of bright aqua green, okay? Now I'm using a lot of water and a little bit of paint, doing the glaze technique. Whenever you're painting water, I like painting really transparent layers. That's the best way to paint water because that's really what water is, transparent layers. Okay, now I'm going to switch to my cerulean. I'm not even cleaning off my brush. I'm going to start at the bottom. I'm going to start pretty thick and heavy, okay? This is, once again, pretty heavy paint. Not a ton of water mixed into it, maybe just a little, but not a ton. Primarily paint. Then I can start adding water to my paint and bring it up and mix it in. Okay, just like that. We can then bring some of the bright aqua green down into it. We can just kind of mix it until it looks like it seamlessly transitions from the bright aqua green to the cerulean. Now here's the cool thing about water. You can have patches of blue and patches of the blue-green. Doesn't have to all be exactly the same, okay? You can have it be more patchy, I guess is the best way to put it. Okay, there we go. I'm pretty happy with that. I'm gonna swirl, tap, and dry my brush. And then there's just one more thing that we need to do before we can move on. We're gonna take some of that very watered down white paint, okay? We're gonna start right at the horizon line, but we're gonna start below it instead of going above. And we're gonna bring some of that really watered down paint down and blend it into what we already had. Basically what we're doing is we're just getting a little bit of that reflection of the sky right along the horizon line. Might clean up the horizon line a little bit. If yours is fuzzy like mine is, you can smooth it out. And there you go. Don't have to do a lot to this right now. Don't worry if you feel like, oh, I haven't done enough. No, you don't want to do a ton to it. We'll go back and add details later. This is just the very first layer, okay? So swirl, tap, and dry your brush, and let's move on. All right, we are going to move on to the bridge. Now, you may have to take a moment, go have a break, stretch your legs before you can do this step because you need to make sure that your sky is completely dry before you start drawing. You will have a colored piece of chalk in your kit. If you did not buy the kit, pencil is okay. It's not great. I never recommend pencil, but it is good if you really need it. And we're going to use this to draw out our bridge. So first step, we're going to draw a nice big half circle right on top of the horizon line. And try to get this as symmetrical as possible. If it's not perfectly symmetrical, well, we can just say, oh, the bridge, we're viewing it from an angle. Okay, so no stress. Then you're gonna build, we're not building a bridge, thank goodness. You're gonna draw another circle on top, but this one's going to be a little bit more of an oval rather than a circle. So the circle is going to be nice and round, and then the oval just flattens out a little bit so that the top is a little bit thinner, the top portion of the bridge is a little bit thinner, and the sides are a little bit thicker. Next, we're going to draw the under part of the bridge by just putting a little line in, okay? So we're seeing just a tad bit of the under bridge. Then we're going to draw another oval right on top. This is going to be for our fence or railing, not fence, railing for our bridge. And if you want to get really detailed, you're more than welcome to. I'm going to do that later. If you want to make that a little bit smaller, I made mine a bit big, then you can. The reason we're using chalk is because it does erase. So you can take your clean damp brush and you can erase it away and it will disappear. So that's the reason we're using chalk. Pencil is not that way. Pencil will show through your paint over time, and chalk will not. Chalk will just disappear and go away when you paint over it. It's great. Okay, so I have my bridge drawn out. Now we're going to paint. Now there's no fancy tricks or anything like that for this first layer that we're going to do for the bridge. It's just painting. That's it, just filling in, blocking out. We're going to ignore the railing for now. We're going to pay attention to just filling in or blocking out the different colors of the bridge. I'm going to use a smaller brush. You could even use your 5/8 wash brush if you want, and we're going to talk about how to outline really quickly. I'm going to use the top edge of my brush and hold it kind of perpendicular to the canvas to make a nice line. When I fill in, I can use the side of my brush and hold it a little bit closer, the angle closer to the canvas, okay? So let's look at what that looks like really fast. I'm going to block out the part of my bridge that is light purple really fast, and so I'm outlining. I'm going right to the horizon line and stopping, and I'm outlining first, and then after I have my outline finished using the top edge of my brush, I can switch to the side of my brush and fill it in just like that. Okay, so I'm going to do that really fast. I'm also going to use a smaller brush and block out and fill in the under portion of my bridge. And once I have that done, we will move on to the next step. So I'm going to speed up the video here really quickly and kind of get this all finished quickly for the video. Take your time. You can pause the video anytime you want and play catch up. Okay, so speeding up the video now. We should have our bridge all outlined. Now we're ready to move on. We're going to add some details to our bridge. So we're going to use smaller brushes for this, the 5/8 brush or the, oh boy, that sometimes happens, don't worry. These brushes have gotten a lot of use. The shader brush, just push it back on, it's fine. Okay, so first we're going to create some texture on the bridge, and we're going to do that by adding a little bit of white to our color number 4, which is our light purple. Basically, we're making a lighter version or a tint of that color, and that is going to be what we use to create some texture. Now, when you're doing texture, dry brush is probably the best thing you can start off with, okay? Otherwise, it'll be really smooth and flat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my brush, now that I have my color mixed up, I'm going to dry it out as best I can, and I'm going to use it to do some tapping. Okay, that will create some nice texture. Okay, so I'm going to do that as much or as little as I want. You don't have to do texture. Maybe your bridge is newer than mine. That's cool. Mine is old, so I'm going to put on some texture. You can also add more white as you see fit. Kind of mix your colors as you go. And then the only other thing that I would suggest that you do really fast is to just add a little teeny tiny highlight right here. Just lighten it up right there. I like to do that every once in a while just to make it so that it's not this flat area, but it has just a little bit of a highlight. Maybe it's the water reflecting. Okay, after you have your texture done, let's do the details. We're going to use a round brush to do a whole bunch of details. So get ready. Now, I'm going to do this upside down because I want this portion of the painting to be closer to me when I'm doing it. You don't have to do that by any means. I'm going to take color number 5, which is our dark purple, and I'm going to outline my bridge. So maybe my texture got a little out of control. I can clean that up really fast. When you're outlining, you want to mix a little bit of water into your paint. The harder you press on your brush, the thicker the line is going to be. So you need to figure out how to apply nice light pressure on your brush. So the lighter the pressure, the thinner the line is going to be. You can practice that on your palette, your foam plate if you need to, before you actually get to doing it onto your canvas. I'm going to outline my bridge really fast. Now, if you can, try to do solid sweeping lines and not short choppy ones. Those always turn out better than the choppy ones. But every once in a while I have to do short choppy ones, and that's okay. Okay, so do what works for you to get the job done. Okay, I'm going to outline the top of my bridge, And then I'm going to start adding some details. The details are going to be the railing. I'm also going to kind of segment this bridge so that it's not just a solid mass of purple, but it looks like it's been, you know, created out of slabs of stone. Okay, so I'm going to try to finish this as quickly as possible and then talk to you about how to segment the stone. Now, don't worry if those lines aren't perfect. This bridge is far away and it's old. It's an old bridge, it's fine. Okay, so next I'm going to draw lines through my purple bridge, or purple gray bridge. We're using kind of weird colors today because it's spring. Everybody likes color. During the spring, the more color, the better. And once I have that done, I can move on to my railing. Now the railing is the hardest part of this whole painting because you have to draw some pretty straight lines. If you're having trouble with a round brush, it's not my favorite brush, you can use this brush, the like a shader brush or your wash brush, and you can just turn it to its thinnest point to create really nice straight lines. If you have a really good brush, you could probably even use it to almost just stamp it on. Okay, like so. You'll also need to create the top of your railing. And then after you have kind of the big ones done, I have too much water in my brush. Okay, so if you have too much water in your brush, the paint will look really transparent. So you need a good balance of water and paint. There we go. So once you have the big ones done, then you can come in and do the small ones. And if you are smart, you will do the railing about the exact size of the width of your brush, and it goes so fast. Okay, so I think 3 rails in between each big rail. And you'll be done in no time. Just like that. Okay, and we have a rail. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's far away. And it's an old bridge. It's cool. Okay, so the only thing that I would suggest is if you have any rogue rails that got a little bit too high above the railing, then you just knock them back. And you can do that by erasing your paint. You can take a clean damp brush and you can erase paint by wiggling it a little bit. Now this is only doable when the paint is wet. You can't do it any other time. Now if you look at your bridge, I'm looking at mine, and I'm seeing my bridge is very wonky. If anything like that is happening to you, you can fix it, okay? Paint covers paint, remember that. So, for instance, my bridge is a little bit, goes up just a little bit up here, just a little too high. So what I can do is I can cover that up, bring it down a little bit lower, lower the bridge, and fix it accordingly. Okay, then you just have to kind of redo all of your steps, doing all the details and all that stuff, some texture, all that good stuff. Okay, so go ahead and make your bridge absolutely perfect. Maybe that portion doesn't need to be redone. Okay, and then we can move on. So perfect your bridges, take your time, do a good job, and then we'll move on to the fun parts of this painting. Okay, now for the fun part, the reflection. So we are going to make this bridge feel like it's part of the water and not just floating on top. We are going to do that with lots of little teeny tiny lines, ripples, if you will. Okay, so everything that is above the horizon line is going to be reflected below the horizon line in the water, but it's going to look, it's not going to be obviously a perfect replica, it's going to be kind of like a fuzzy rippled outline. Okay, so the way we do that is that we add water to our paint, again layers, and we come right at the bridge and start adding these little zigzag lines. So we're using the top edge of a brush, we're following everything, kind of mirroring everything that's above the water, below the water. Okay, so I'm going to start by just putting in my dark. Then I can switch over to my light. I don't really even need to wash out my brushes when I'm doing this, but I do need to be mindful of water. So make sure you're mixing a little tiny bit of water into your brush. And I'm kind of crisscrossing and overlapping my ripples. And making sure that, again, everything is mirrored above is mirrored. Sorry, everything that is above is mirrored below. Okay. But remember, it becomes more detailed the closer it gets to the horizon line, and less detailed and kind of spaced out the further away it gets. Okay. Just like that. Then I can add some white, just for good measure. Again, not cleaning off my brush, but just brightening it up a little bit, lightening it up a little bit. And we're just about finished. Okay, there's one more important thing that we need to do before we can move on to step number 6. We're going to take some of color number 2, which is the bright aqua green. We're going to mix a little bit of white into it, and we're actually going to raise the horizon line underneath the bridge. The way we do that is we just add little tiny ripples so that our horizon line is now just a tad bit higher. You can also bring some white down around the bridge if you need to. And remember, these ripples, they are really transparent, they're light. You can add some white. And soften them up whenever you need to. Don't worry too much about this area. We're going to cover it up with a tree, and then you should be done. Okay, so we're just adding a little bit of ripples, raising up that horizon line, and now the bridge actually looks like it's in the water, which is important. All right, we are just about finished with this painting. The only thing left to do is add the cherry blossoms. So we're going to take off color number 6, the lid off of color number 6, and we're going to put on a whole bunch of cherry blossoms. Now, I'm going to be really strategic about this. I want to cover up kind of the edges of the bridge. I want to kind of create like a vignette, like we're focusing in on the bridge, but I want to make sure that I'm not being too blocky, okay? And what I mean by that is I shouldn't have like a square, okay? If you end up with like a square, we might have to add some stuff to it. If you end up with a square, make it into a more organic tree shape by adding tumors. That's what I call them. So we're going to add some tumors, make them a little bit more interesting, and cover up just a little bit of that bridge. Not all of it. And remember, trees are transparent, so you can let some of the beautiful painting that we've worked so hard on show through. Okay, now I'm just doing a whole bunch of tapping motions. I'm using the top of my brush every once in a while and the side of my brush every once in a while, just to create more texture and different shapes, a better variety of shapes. I'm using the lightest pink, which is color number 6, because we start light and then we're going to end dark. This is kind of a backlit painting, so it means our light source is behind these trees. And I'm just going to continue putting this on. I'm so sorry if you can hear my dog in the background. He just had an adventure chasing some squirrels in the backyard, and apparently he's tuckered out. So if he's panting horribly, I apologize if you can hear that. Okay, so once you're happy with your trees, you stop. Okay, so this is the basic outline of what your trees are going to look like. You can always make more if you want, you can add more, but I would highly recommend being careful not to overdo it. So I always kind of, just like when you're cutting your hair, start with a little bit, then you can always add, cut off more later. So you can always add more later if you want, but don't go too crazy too fast. Okay. Okay, now your just going to take color number 7 and color number 8. These are just slightly darker variations of color number 6. There's less white in them. And we're going to start with color number 7. Just kind of add some to the middle. You're letting some of the light pink show through in areas, okay? So the goal is not to cover up everything. The goal is just to add like another layer kind of in the inside. Again, we're adding more interest, making it a bit more dynamic. You're gonna start with this color number 7. I'm gonna do this side really fast. You can go outside of the light pink a little bit every once in a while, but don't make too much of a habit of it, okay? And then once you're done with color number 7, you switch to color number 8, which is our darkest color, and really tap that in. You can make these trees very thick. Okay, this is kind of an impasto technique where we're layering on a lot of paint. That is a good technique to use, especially when you're trying to create something really textured like the trees. And once you're happy, you can move on to applying this color everywhere else. Okay, now keep in mind that you can always backtrack. For instance, I'm not really keen or sold on this area right here, so I might just come in with a little bit of color number 6 and do some blending, okay? Mix in the colors just a little bit so it's not quite so blocky, not everywhere at least, and you might be happier with that, okay? So you can always switch to a smaller brush and go back a few colors and work on it until you're happy with it. I'm going to speed up the video and finish this side really fast. Okay, if you're done with your trees, we're ready for the very last step, and that is to reflect the cherry blossoms in our lake. I bet you're looking at your painting and going, ooh, it is looking pretty good. Well, it's going to look even better once we get just a little bit of the pink reflected in the water and maybe add a few more ripples. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to create some darker ripples on my lake. So remember, add some water. I'm going to take my cerulean blue, which was color number 3, and just like I did the bridge, I'm going to just add some zigzag lines kind of everywhere, okay? Especially in these corners where I'm trying to get it a little bit darker. So I'm creating kind of a base for where I'm going to put my cherry blossoms. I'm leaving kind of the center of my painting alone. I want it to be a little bit brighter there. Again, we're kind of creating that vignette looking thing. So it's darker on the edges, brighter in the center. So I'm putting just a few more ripples and I'm happy with that. Now I'm going to take some of my cherry blossom colors, which were colors 6, 7, and 8, and I'm going to reflect them into the water. So once again, I'm starting with my lightest color, and wherever you feel like it would be appropriate, kind of mirror some of those cherry blossoms down below in the water. Okay, I'm going to put quite a bit over here. And remember, you can kind of do some clumps every once in a while for where maybe there's bigger cherry blossoms. I like to put some down in the very immediate foreground just because it looks a little bit more interesting having those colors all tied in. And then you go to color number 7, add just a touch, not too much. This is really subtle. You don't have to do a lot, okay? So this is pretty much the easiest step of the whole painting. We're not doing a ton. Okay. And then you will be done. Okay. Look at that. Of course, you can add more light area in here if you want. You can continue adding cherry blossoms. This is your painting, so you can do whatever you would like to do. I hope you had fun with this painting. It's one of my personal favorites that we've done, and I hope to see you again next month for our next painting.